Hi, my name is Garrett Mason, and I am the Human-Centered Design Specialist at PACT. And I'm here to talk to you today about a very important topic in our field, and that is the topic of problem solving. Sometimes we encounter problems that are much like baking a cake. We know the ingredients, we know the step-by-step process in order to arrive at a result, and we even know how long it'll take to get there. This is maybe something we see in development in the form of building or constructing a well. We know the concrete, how much concrete we need. We know how deep to dig the well. We even know about how long it will take us to construct it. This is a simple problem that we sometimes encounter in our work. But there are also sometimes we are encountering different problems. Problems more akin to sending a person to the moon. These are very complicated problems that involve many different moving pieces, but we still can isolate those different factors. We can understand them, and we can solve for each of them, and combining them all come to a well-rounded solution. An example of this, maybe in the development world, is addressing poor education in a school. If we isolate factors such as lack of textbooks or maybe poor training for teachers, address those issues, then we can come to a better solution for the education of the students in the classroom. But what's really interesting is that although we see cake baking or moon traveling problems sometimes in our work, actually the vast majority of the problems that we deal with are more complex than that. These are child-raising problems that involve many different factors that are connected to each other. And it's not just the factors themselves, but the relationship between those factors that matters. And so when we go to solve these types of problems, it becomes overwhelming oftentimes. And actually the example that I just gave of addressing poor education in a classroom may actually be a complex problem, maybe of the child raising type and not of the moon traveling type. There might be other factors that we really need to understand, such as students maybe not coming to class on a regular basis, or the salaries that the teachers are receiving, or the fact that families or even the faculty themselves need to work on the farm in order to make ends meet. Maybe it has to do with not having access to electricity or lighting for students to be able to study in the evening. Students often have to travel long distances. All of these factors, right, cannot be handled in isolation, but actually are interconnected in really fundamental ways. And so when we talk about, addressing maybe this topic of education in the classroom, it quickly becomes not just an education issue, but one of infrastructure and energy and governance and capacity building and a myriad of other things as well. And so in our work in development, we oftentimes see these types of issues. And the real question is, how do we solve for these complex child-raising problems? And I believe passionately that the answer is being able to see the problem and see solutions in new and different ways. And there are a number of tools that we have to be able to do this. Human-centered design and systems practice are two of those tools that have been really effective from my experience in this work. These tools allow us to zoom in and look at the details and the particulars of a situation, as well as to zoom out and see the broader patterns, the underlying principles that are at play as well. And we really need to be able to do both, to be able to see both the zoomed in pieces as well as the zoomed out in order to get a better understanding of the problem and the solutions and move forward. What is really important about human-centered design and systems practice, beyond just the tools and methods and the techniques that these two approaches embody is actually in the process itself. And this is what is extremely powerful about human-centered design and systems practice. It is a collaborative, iterative process in both cases. It brings stakeholders together to work collectively to both understand as well as drive solutions moving forward. And it does this in a number of ways. It does it by, one, encouraging us to see the problems and the solutions differently, by sharing our diverse perspectives. It, number two, values each and every perspective. Number three, it develops a common understanding. And number four, it identifies agreed upon ways for moving forward. Both systems practice and human-centered design embody all of these different aspects, which is what is so powerful. They allow and facilitate the process by which collective solutions can emerge from the process itself. And what's key is that they require trust. And this is not something that is an easy thing to come by, especially in our work with so many diverse stakeholders. But what is really powerful about human-centered design systems practice is through the processes themselves, it actually facilitates the building of trust. And so while systems practice and human-centered design both have their advocates about this is the way that we should be approaching our work, we need to be using this approach, what I argue is that it's not an either or. They are actually complementary approaches, and they should be used together. As I'll explain, many of the weaknesses of human-centered design complement the strengths of systems practice. And the weaknesses that systems practice has are complemented by the strengths of human-centered design. So for example, human-centered design has weaknesses around seeing the big picture, using trial and error as a cycle for inefficiently arriving at the right problem or the right solution, and working primarily with the community members, an extremely important group of people, missing the larger community, the larger people that are involved. Whereas systems practice has these strengths. It is about analyzing the big picture, identifying those exact leverage points for targeting solutions, and involving all stakeholders. Systems practice, on the other hand, has a number of weaknesses. Oftentimes it can be too abstract and misses the connection to people's lives. It also is really about understanding and not about developing and implementing an action plan. Human-centered design, on the other hand, is able to ground the work in people's lived lives, those experiences of the people, and is very action-oriented and is focused on implementing solutions. So you can see that these two approaches really work well together. But individuals and organizations who are using human-centered design and systems practice, I think, are sometimes using them as tools, and are missing the powerful approach of bringing people together. And so it really requires the skillful facilitation of the process itself. And so I'd say that in order to move forward with using these really important approaches, there's a number of things that we need to do. One is, I think we need to hold each other accountable to using human-centered design and systems practice as ways for really truly working with communities in a different type of way. It means really working alongside them as genuine partners in the process of addressing their needs. It also means really taking an asset-based approach, looking at the strengths and what communities have to offer, and integrating that into the strengths and assets that implementers and donors and others that are involved bring as well. And it's important that we recognize that there are solutions that already exist in communities instead of always bringing them from outside. We also must support each other and collaborate if we're truly interested in improving the lives of people in the communities where we work. We're stronger together. And lastly, I think we need to take the long view. It's not about the 5-year donor-funded project cycles, but it's about creating healthier communities through healthier systems, not fixing the cake baking or the moon traveling problems that come up, but really working to address those more complex issues and creating better outcomes that will